Ruby Language Basics 1. These are the set of topics we are going to cover. We are going to learn what Ruby is all about, and we are going to learn the naming convention of Ruby programming language. We are going to see how we can use what is called interactive Ruby. It's a shell in which you can run Ruby commands, Ruby programs. And we'll talk about the Ruby object, and we'll talk about Ruby types, string, hash, and symbol. And we are going to see how we can create a class. Ruby itself has it does support inheritance just like a Java, so we are going to see how we can create a child class from a parent class and things like that. And we are going to see how we can create a Ruby object. What is Ruby? Ruby is defined as a dynamic open source programming language with a focus on simplicity. So one of the key benefits of Ruby as a programming language is simplicity and productivity. It has an elegant syntax that is natural to read and easy to write. So this kind of sums up the benefit of Ruby as a programming language. Ruby as a programming language, it is dynamically typed, meaning a variable, the type of a variable can be changed dynamically during runtime depending on the type of value that is being assigned to. And it's optimized for bubbles, which means Ruby program is easy to write and easy to read. And it's powerful and it's also fun. And in Ruby, everything is an object. There is no concept of primitive like in Java. Okay, so everything is an object. Ruby language history was created by Yakihiro Matsu. Matsu is his actual nickname. And it was actually designed, it was created around the same time as Java, so it has a pretty long history. Ruby, the latest version is I think 2.1.6. Right? The one we are using at the moment is 2.1.5. Okay? Yeah, I'm not sure actually 2.1.6 is in fact even the latest. I think it's 2.1.x as of today. So as long as we are using Ruby 2.1.x, that should be good enough for this code camp. Ruby programming conventions. Naming conventions, I meant. Ruby file ends with .rb, the suffix, and class and module names typically in mixed case. So my class is an example name of a class. Method names use lowercase with underscores. So my underscore own underscore method, that is the name, naming convention for a method. Same thing with the local variable. Local variables use lowercase with underscores, just like methods. Okay, so my underscore own underscore variable. Okay. One reason why you should use lowercase is that if you capitalize the first letter, Ruby will actually define a constant instead of a variable. So in fact, it's important to use lowercase for local variables. Okay. So for example, in this case, it's a local variable, and in this case, pi is actually considered as a constant. There are several different types of variables: instance variable and class variable and global variable. So instance variable is the one that you are going to use the most, and that start with the @ sign, and then class variables start with the to @ sign, and global variables start with $sign. There is also what is called the local variable, typically within a method that doesn't have any the @ sign at all. It's just the local variable, what we have seen in this case. Okay. Constants, you're going to use the uppercase typically, just like in other languages. Okay, so let's move on to ILB, Interactive Ruby Shell. Basically, ILB comes with Ruby package. It's a shell in which you can execute Ruby statement. Okay, so you can say ILB. So if you say ILB, then it will give you a shell. So you can say 2.2 and 125. and you can actually quit. So if you do not want to have this long prompt here, you can use simple format. So IRB -- simple prompt. Oops, IRB I should say. Okay, then and it gives you a simpler prompt. So that's something that we are going to use on and off. So that is IRB. Okay, so we are going to do exercise 1. So again, you are going to go to the class website, and you are going to download Ruby Basics 1. So I have that one already in my shell here. So let's go to, in case in my system I have every zip file loaded on the left. So that is 5508 Ruby Basics.zip file. So you are going to unzip it, and it will create a Ruby_basics directory, and then it does have again index.html file as a lab documentation. So I'm going to read that lab documentation. Go to labs here, Ruby Basics, and as you can see, it has a lab documentation as well as samples Ruby directory in which we have a bunch of sample Ruby programs. Okay, so let's actually read the documentation first. Open the documentation, and let's do exercise 1. So exercise 1, we are basically playing around with the IRB. Okay, so here you can type IRB, and you can use puts command. It's basically, you know, it's a print the printf in C, or the just like any other print statement from other programming languages. So I can say life is good, and it printed out, and this is a return value. So you know, return value is basically when this is executed, the return value will be displayed like here. Okay? So in this case, 2 plus 2, the return value is 4, so that's what gets displayed. But puts, it doesn't actually return anything. It does basically returns nil. So that's the reason the return value is nil. But the actual command is displaying life is good, the string like this. Okay. Now if you say put 3 plus 2, you can see the value is displayed, and then the return value is again nil, because the return value from puts is nil. Okay. So let's actually quit again, and then we are going to write our first Ruby program as a file. So we're going to create hello.rb file. So let's create that file. You can actually use any editor of your choice. Okay, I'm going to actually go to directory called Ruby project. So you can actually do any place of your choice. So I'm going to actually use text editor of your choice. So hello.rb file. Okay, and basically I'm going to say this is my first Ruby program, and then you're going to display also 10 plus 20 or something like that. Okay, and you save it, and then you can actually run it in the command line. So you know, I do have this hello.rb file. So in order to run it, basically you say ruby and hello.rb file like this, and it will display the result of it. Okay, or you can run it within the Sublime text. So again, Control B, then it should return the result in the console like this. Okay, so that's basically how to run IRB and how to run your Ruby program. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys about 5 minutes to try exercise 1. Let's talk about Ruby object. So as I said, in Ruby, everything is an object, like in Smalltalk. The other languages such as C++ and Java, they are considered as hybrid languages because they have concept of objects as well as they have a concept of primitive types. And the reason they designed that way is because they thought they might actually provide a better performance for computation-oriented programs, which just use the primitives. But in Ruby, the downside of that approach is that programming-wise, it gets complicated. Okay, so in Ruby, everything is an object. So what is an object? So using Smalltalk terminology, an object can do exactly three things. It holds a state, including references to other objects, so that's not surprising. It can receive a message from both itself and other objects. Okay, but if you translate this statement into, let's say, more Java kind of languages, basically what it means is that an object can contain methods, which are functions that have special access to objects data. Okay, so this is a Smalltalk way of describing methods, and this one, in the course of processing a message, send messages both itself to other objects. We can actually talk about these aspects in the presentation of Ruby meta programming presentation. But basically, the method invocation is like sending a message to itself and to some other object. So basically, what that means is that you can just call or invoke methods. So nothing really fancy about this. Okay, as I said, in Ruby, everything is an object. So even primitives are object. I mean, the values, like these number values, are objects. So you can actually call absolute ABS method of this -1. So -1 is fixed num class type, and it does have what is called the ABS. It's like an ABS method. Basically, there is actually parentheses. Okay, parentheses can be omitted in Ruby, so it's invoking ABS method. Even a nil is an object, so you can actually see all the methods that are available for nil object. Okay, so again, methods is like it's basically the same thing as methods with a parenthesis. So you are invoking this methods method of this nil object. Classes are object as well. So if there is a song class and the new, I mean, like in Java, we also have a new keyword, right? But you can actually call the new as a method. So in fact, it's like a song.new and it's like a parenthesis omitted. You are invoking new method of a class object. Code blocks can be converted into objects as well. We can actually talk about this concept later on in the meta programming. We actually code the blocks and the procs presentation. So code blocks can be converted into first class object, and they are called like a procs. What that means is that they can be assigned to a variable, or they can be passed around as an argument, or they can actually be returned as a return value. Just like string object can be assigned into a variable, or it can be passed as an argument into a method, or it can be returned as return value. So code block, once it's converted into an object, it's just like any other object type in Ruby programming language, like a string class, or the fixed num class, where you are personal, the custom class like a person or something. Okay, it is a basis for enabling closure. So we can actually talk about the concept of closure in another presentation later on today. Okay, so variables and objects. So this is not that much different from Java. So basically, you are assigning string value into a variable called the comedian. Okay, one difference between Java and Ruby is that you don't have to declare the type of comedian upfront. Okay, so you can say comedian. You just provide the name of the variable and then you assign the value to it, and that's pretty much all you have to do. There is no pre-declaration you have to do with the comedian variable. Moving forward, Ruby types. So Ruby types include string type, number type, and the symbol type. Symbol is kind of new concept if you're coming from Java background, and array and hash. So let's talk about each of these types in a bit more detail. String types. String type. So string literal. So one way you can create a string is to use either single or double quote inside your Ruby program, and then it will create what is called a string literal. Okay, so either one is fine, single quote and double quote. Okay, however, if you want to support what is called interpolation, you have to use double quote. Okay, what that means is that if you are using double quote and if you use this notation, pound sign and curly brace, and you can have Ruby expression, that Ruby expression will be evaluated and result will be displayed. Result will be inserted into the string. So that is called interpolation. And this is supported only when you are using double quote. Okay? So in this case, the name variable probably has been set somewhere. Well, actually in this case, it's received as an argument, and that will be evaluated, and then result will be inserted into this string. Okay, so that is basically interpolation concept. So here interpolation is a pound sign and then curly brace and expression. So expression can be any arbitrary Ruby expression. Okay. Now if variable that is referenced in the expression is not available or has not been assigned, then you are going to experience name error exception, and that is that makes sense, right? Okay. So in this case, if you try to access a variable that has not been defined in previous code, then you're going to experience name error exception. Escape sequences. So this is not that much different from other programming languages. So these are escape sequence examples. So we have hello, and then we have a to tap, and then we have a word. Okay, this is a blanks, and this is carriage return. This is new line. Puts and print. Put automatically prints out a new line after the text. So in this case, if you say put, say, comma, hello, then each of this string will be displayed on its own line, because each the string will be ending with a new line. However, if you're using print, then it will not add the new line. So in this case, I say hello, and then I'm using a new line escape character, so that is displaying say hello. Percent notation, so percent W notation, I should say. So percent W notation causes the string into it will break in white spaces to result in a string array. So in this case, we have an ABC, and then it will actually create an array of strings like this. Moving forward, symbol type. So what is a symbol in Ruby language? So you can think of Ruby is an internal representation of a name. Okay. Right, that's a little bit too abstract description of a symbol. The easiest way to understand the symbol is basically any place you can use a string, you can use a symbol. So you can actually use symbol interchangeably with a string. Okay, so for now you can think of symbol as an optimized representation of a string. And I'm going to talk about why you want to use a symbol instead of a string in some cases. Okay, so the way that you are going to construct the symbol object is basically using this colon and the name of the symbol. Okay, so in fact, if you take a look at the class of symbol object, it will say symbol. So symbol is one of those types in Ruby programming language. Okay, so the way you create a symbol is again colon and then name of the symbol. Okay. Now this is the characteristics of symbol. It's atomic and it's immutable and it's unique. Okay, so it cannot be parsed or modified. Okay. So all references to a symbol refer to the same object. So this is the comparison. So I like to compare my value symbol with another my value symbol. In fact, these two are pointing to a same object, so it will return true. Okay. On the other hand, string object, whenever you're creating a string object, even though they contain the same string value, they are in fact different objects. So if you try to compare string object equal, it will return false because they are not pointing to the same object. Okay. All right, so we can actually try this. So let's try ILB, and we are going to take a look at my symbol. If I want to see the class of it, then you can see it returns a symbol as a type. Okay, and we can try my symbol whatever equal question mark, and then I'm going to compare. Yeah, I'm going to compare the symbol. That's the way I type it. So I'm going to say symbol, SYMBIL, and it should return true because they are pointing to the same object. However, if I say I'm going to just use a test, and that equal question mark, that in fact is a name of a method. Okay, and this is an argument. Argument is passing test, and it should return false because test object, even though they contains the this test object and this test object, even though they contain the same string value, they are in fact two different objects. Okay, so that is a symbol. So let's compare symbol versus against the string. So symbols are always interchangeable to string. So any place you can use a string, you can use a symbol. Okay. Now, why you want to use a symbol against the string? Okay. So I would say important reason versus not important reason. So as I said, symbol is unique and immutable. Okay. There is a single symbol object with the same name. Okay, so if you're repeating same string many times in your Ruby code, okay, for example, 10,000 times, if you're using string, it will in fact have a 10,000 different objects, so it will consume a lot more memory space. Okay, if you're using symbol, then it will create just a single the symbol object. Okay. That is actually an important reason to use a symbol. Minor reasons to use a symbol of a string is that symbol is easier to type than string. Okay, so you actually, the string you have to actually use the two double quote, right? A symbol you just use a colon, so you save a single character typing basically. Symbol stands out in the editor, and different syntax can distinguish keys from values in hash. So you are going to use a symbol everywhere. You can use a string, right? So instead of using name string here, basically you can use a symbol as a key value pair, right? So in general, you are going to see the usage of symbol everywhere in Ruby programs and Rails programs, okay, instead of a string. Okay, so let's move on to the next Ruby type, hash. So hash is something similar to map in Java. Okay, so basically hashes are key value pairs, just like in map object in Java, and each key has to be unique, right? Okay. The hash object can be created by using hash.new. So basically you have a hash method, and then it's going to call new method. Okay, new method, and it returns a hash object. Okay, so these are examples. So you can use hash.new to create hash object, or you can use this notation. So this is creating empty hash. Okay, or you can create a hash object by providing the key value pairs. Okay, so this is a key A, and this is a value, and this is a key, and this is a value, and this is the key, and this is a value. Okay, so these key value pairs are provided when you create your hash object. Okay, by the way, this notation is called a rocket here. You can basically see this notation many times in Ruby programs, even though that is actually newer and better syntax than this. Okay, but basically you can just in this case, this is a way that you are creating hash object with a key value pair with this rocket notation in the middle. Okay. Okay, so this is the way we can create a hash object. So we have three key value pairs, A, B, C, and the values are 1, 2, 3, right? Okay. Now, as I said, any place you can use a string, you can use a symbol. So instead of using a string A, B, C, you can use symbols A, B, C. Okay, now from Ruby 1.9, a simplified notation is provided. So instead of using this rocket notation, you can actually use this notation. So this is a lot more simpler and easier to read. Okay, so these three things are the same thing. Okay, so this notation, instead of using this rocket, you're basically using a colon and the value. So this is in fact the easier than the other two notations. Moving forward. Okay, so where do symbols typically used? As I said, symbols are used everywhere in Ruby and Rails programs. So as the name of the keys. Okay, so instead of name string, you can use a symbol. Okay, an argument of a method. So whenever you are passing a string as an argument, you can actually pass as symbols. Okay, you can actually even use as a method name. Okay, right. So symbols are used in Rails and Ruby programs pervasively. Okay, so let's do exercise 2. In this case, we are going to actually use the sample programs that are provided just to kind of speed up the learning process, but you're welcome to actually create this file from scratch if you want to. So we are going to actually open the folder that contains the sample Ruby program. So I'm going to go to labs here, and I have this Ruby basics. So that is Ruby basics directory, and you can see that it's a samples Ruby folder. So if you take a look at the samples Ruby, we have a bunch of sample programs. Okay, so I'm gonna actually open that folder. So samples Ruby, and I have Control K, Control B, so I should be able to see all the files in that directory. Okay. Oops. Okay, so we just opened that directory. Okay, so you can specify Sublime text, and then you can specify the name of the folder. All right, the first thing we are going to see is Ruby string class.rb file. So Ruby string class.rb file, string class Ruby, and Ruby. Yeah, I'm gonna just use a Control P. It's Ruby string class 1. Okay, so that's the one. So yeah, so this is the code. Control K, Control B, and basically we want to display string with either double quote or single quote. Either one should work fine. So let's actually run this code first. Okay, Control B, and you can see the all this running fine. Okay, so let me just explain the code. So you can use either single quote and double quote. If you want to do interpolation, then you have to use double quote. So in this case, I'm using double quote, so that works fine. So this time now is basically getting the current time. So if you take a look at this guy, the first one works. Okay, it's in fact displaying the current time, 2015, November 16th, 11:13. However, if you're using single quote, then it is not going to do any the interpolation. So it will just display this value as it is. Okay, so there is no interpolation is happening if you're using single quote. I'd like to see the class of the string. So in this case, this is going to be string class. Okay, and you can invoke a method of a string class. So I'm going to uppercase method of Ruby and Rails and capitalize. Okay, so that is this guy. The result is this. So the first one is uppercased and this one is capitalized. And I like to see symbols class. So symbols class returns symbol here, right? Okay. And concatenation, you can do concatenation. So you can use this notation to do concatenation. Okay, or you can use a plus sign. Okay, and so yeah. So it's another example of concatenation. And displaying passion 3. Yeah, so you can also actually do pass string and then dot, and this is a star. By the way, the even the operator is a method. So this is considered as a method. That's the reason you have, in fact, you can have this parenthesis. So this stop method is basically displaying this value 3 times. That's what you are going to see. Display, yeah, here you go, passion 3 times. Okay, and you can also actually do comparison using this notation. Okay, so if they are the same, it will return 0. If it is less than, then it will -1. If it's greater than, it will return 1. Okay, all right, so that is a string class, and so that is the result. Okay, and yes, so this is the result. And everything in Ruby is an object. So basically we are displaying class information. So that is Ruby, everything is an object. Control P, Ruby, everything is an object. So that is the code. Again, if you run it, and it runs. So I'm going to actually use the documentation to explain things. I'm going to give you guys enough time to do the labs. Okay, so let me just finish up the explanation of everything in exercise 2, then you will do the lab. So in this case, display class information of various objects. As I said before, everything in Ruby is an object. Okay, so obviously this is the string class object, and 9 is a fixed num type, and this is an array type, and this is a hash type, and this is also hash type. Okay, what's the difference between, oh, okay, so basically, the hash, you can use this notation or you can use this new notation from Ruby 1.9. Let me just increase the font size of here. Okay, and here create a, this is a way you are going to create a new class. Okay, so you say class, the name of the class is my class. Okay, we're going to actually learn how to create a class later on in a bit more detail. So just assume this is the way that you are going to create a class. Not much different from Java. And we create an object instance of my class, okay, calling new static method of my class. Okay, so, well, I should say class method rather than static method. Static method is the terminology from Java. Okay, so now if I take a look at the class of the C object, it should return my class. Okay, now if you say class.class, the method can be chained. Basically, it will give you a class of the parent class of my class, so that should be class. Okay, my class is in fact an object instance of class type. Okay, so if you say class of my type, then it should actually return class. Time now should actually display the current time, so that is basically my time of this guy, right? Okay. Again, time class is an object instance of class type. So when you say that class of time, it should actually return class. In the same way, I get the class type of the type of the my class object is again, my class is an object of class type, so it should return class. Okay. Display number of methods on an object class. So object class, object type is in fact the root type of all object in Ruby, just like in Java. So you can call the methods method of that object class, and you can also find out the size of it. Okay, so that is going to be how many? Yeah, so that is, the size is 99. Okay, we can certainly try with the ILB if you want to. So let's say I can try the ILB, and let's actually take a look at the size. Let's take a look at the object and method. So it will display all the method of object class. Okay, now if I want to actually find out the size of it, I can say size, and it gives you 99, or you can use the length if you want to. Okay, so it gives you a number of methods of object type. Okay, you can actually sort this guy, so I can say method and sort. Okay, if you want to actually see in each line, you can actually use puts object method object methods and sort. Then it will give you everything in a sorted fashion. By the way, each of these guys are methods, so you can basically call this guy in the form of the method. So as you're going to see later on, the parentheses can be omitted in Ruby programming language. Okay, so but you can certainly have it. So methods is a method, and also sort is a method as well. So this is the same thing. Okay. All right. So that is exercise 2.2, and this is array class. So we have array object, and this is a way you can assign a value into using an index. Okay, and again you can use this notation. I'm gonna actually let you actually kind of play around this one. So this is actually you can actually use each method, and this is a block. So we haven't learned the concept of a block yet. Basically what it does is that each method will take each item in the array and then pass it into this code block. Okay, so basically it will just display apple, orange, and banana. Okay. And join method is basically I'm actually join. Yeah, so basically fruit is apple, orange, and banana, right? So basically I'm joining with add, so it will return like this. So if you actually take a look at the code and the result, and it kind of it makes sense. This is actually so we have an animal, bear, monkey, and cat and dog, and they have a domestic animal, cat and dog. So this cat and dogs are in the animal and domestic animal. So you can actually use the plus operator to the combine union. This is a union of all the items in the array. Well, you can even actually subtract. So here I am fruits plus animals, then I'm subtracting domestic animals. So in this case, this cat and dog will be in fact removed. Okay, as we are going to learn later on, everything is a method. In fact, this plus sign is in fact a method. Okay, so in fact, you're basically invoke this guy as an argument. So let's actually try that. So Ruby array class, Ruby array class. Ruby array class. Okay, so here when we do this plus, this is the same thing. So let me actually run this guy first, right? So it works everything correctly, so it will return this guy, right? But if I want to use this, I can certainly use this parenthesis, because again this plus is considered as a method, and method can take arguments. So in fact the animals is in fact an argument. Because it's an argument, it's a single argument, I can use a parenthesis. Okay, so again this is the same thing. So I save it and then run it, and it should result in the same. Okay, so we're gonna actually talk about this operator is a method later on in a bit more detail, but I want to give you a sense of how these things work. Okay. All right, so that's array and iteration. So again, here you like to actually find out whether each is one of the public method of array class. So you can say, let's actually try ILB, so array class, and then we can say give public method and defined question, and basically I can say each, and it should return true. Okay, or I can actually remove this parenthesis if I want to. So I can say it should return the same thing. So we are going to actually talk about this parenthesis and all that stuff later on in a bit more detail. Okay, but I just want to verify whether array class has each method. Okay. And also let's see whether fixed num has times method. Okay, so I'm going to just copy this guy, and it should return true. Okay, so now we should be able to invoke this each method and times method. Okay, so we have an array, and then we are going to call each method, and then we are passing a block. Okay, so again, we haven't learned the concept of a block yet. Basically, what you can think of a block is a special argument. So what each method does is taking in each item from this A array and pass it into this code block. Okay, so it will just display each of this. Okay, so in this case, we are just displaying the class of it. So if you run it, it will display class. It should actually display class. Okay, so string class, fixed num class, float, and string and things like that. Okay. Yeah, so if you don't understand this, code block, don't worry about it too much, okay? Because we're gonna actually spend the whole presentation hands-on lab for understanding this code block. Okay, I just want to show you array class has each method, and the fixed num has a times method. Okay, moving forward, hash. So this is a hash. So this is one example of a hash. And then this is a new way of creating a hash using this simpler syntax. Okay, and this is a less common way of defining a class. So this is allowed. Okay, so you can actually use a hash and then like this. Okay, and this is even allowed. But I think this, you rarely see these two syntaxes. Mostly you're going to actually see these two. Okay. All right, let's move forward. When you create a hash, you can actually provide default values. So so for key A, I assign the value of 100, and for key B, I assign the value 200. So if I display those two, I get 100 and 200. But if I try to display any other key, then it will provide a default value. Okay, 2.6 is each method. So here again, we check whether hash class has each method, like array class. Okay, again, we can actually use this each or each value, each and each pair. These are all possible methods for hash. Right, and then we pass the code block. So this is for displaying all the keys. This is for displaying all the values, and this is for displaying key value pairs. And you can actually use each pair as well. So this is the same thing as these two are in fact the same thing. Okay, and you can find out all the methods of hash class. So if you in fact take a look at the hash class method, okay, and if you sort, you are going to see in fact this each key, each pair, each slice, each value, and each with the index bunch of each methods. Okay, so these are all naming conventions. Okay, so we define the constant, and this is a class, and these are instance method, and this is the class method. So we're going to talk about the concept of class method and instance method later on. So when you are defining class method, you are going to use the self. Okay, and the symbol class. So here, this is something we already tried it. So so if you take a look at the object ID of each string, it will return different values. Okay, so let's actually try this. Okay, it's Ruby symbol class 1, Ruby symbol class 1. Okay, so if I run it, you can see, oops, what am I? Ruby symbol class. Oh, string class, yeah, okay, so I was in the wrong file. So Ruby symbol for class 1. Okay, so this one is better. So Control V. So you can see the values of the strings are all different. So the object ID of these guys are all different. Okay, so again, these are all methods. You can actually think of it as a methods. Okay, like this. All right. But however, the symbols, the object ID are the same. Okay, so again, you can think of this guy as a method like this. Okay, so when you run it, it should actually result to the same. Okay, all right. So that's pretty much it. And the symbol class 2, yeah, so this is basically why you want to use a symbol in most cases. So in this case, when you're creating a hash object, I'm actually using in this case string object. Okay, in this case, I'm using hash. So in this case, it will create 10,000 times of this object. In this case, it will create just one symbol object, and that should be it. Okay. The array of strings notation, % and W. So here, when you are using this notation, yeah. So this is, when you see the class, it is in fact the array class, and when you display this guy, it will create an array like this. And 2.11 is interpolation with a string. Okay. And then 2.12 is the number class, fixed num, float, and fixed num. Right? So pretty straightforward. Okay, so I tried to actually explain every single lab exercise in detail, since this is the first time of this lab in a sense. So, but moving forward, I'm going to actually explain only a few sample programs so that you have more time to try this exercise. So I am going to give you guys about 15 minutes to do this exercise too. let's continue. Ruby class and object. So every object in Ruby is created from a class. And as we have seen in our previous example, you can find the class of any object simply by calling class method. So here I can call the class method of string object and it should return string. I can call class method of a fixed num object and it should return fixed num. And this is array object and it should return array. This is a hash object, right? And that should return hash. And this is another way of representing a hash. So that should return hash. And for symbol object, it should return symbol class. So this is something that you can try from IRB. Now let's see how you can create your own custom class. You are going to use class keyword to create a class definition. So here you say class, and the name of the class in this case is a chocolate, and it has a single method called the eat. So we're gonna see how we can add the method at basically using def method. Okay, now suppose if you have a class, you can create an object instance from that class by using new keyword. Again, we have a new method of that class. Okay? And again, we have seen this one before. An object instance is created from a class through a process of class instantiation, and that works like in Java. And here you are going to use new keyword, new method of that class. So this is in fact from a class. And your new method is from a class. So every object instance of a class type, in this case my class, should be able to call new method. Okay, and then you can pass parameters, and then it return an object. Okay, so you can also have what is called initialize method that works like a constructor in Java. Okay, so if you define initialize method and you receive parameters, and this will be every time you are creating my class object, this initialize method will be invoked. Okay, so in this case you pass parameters, and that parameters will be sent as arguments to the initialize method. Okay, so let's take a look at an example of rocket ship class. Okay, so this is the class we are going to dissect in the following slide. Okay, so let's take a look at the class definition first. So every class is from object class. So object is the root of all class hierarchy. Okay, just like in Java. Okay, because it's a root, this is optional, but you can certainly specify it if you want to. So in this case, I'm creating a child class called the rocket ship from object class. Okay, so from object class. Now, as I said, initialize method is used as a constructor. So in this case, we have initialize method, and it receives destination as an argument, and we are basically using that destination argument to initialize instance variable called destination. Okay, so this is a constructor method. So when we create an object instance of rocket ship, so this is a way we are going to create the rocket ship object instance by using new method and passing Neptune as an argument. So basically it will initialize destination instance variable with the value of Neptune, and then we have a rocket ship object represented by the all variable. Okay, attribute accessor. So basically, if you are coming from Java background, you know that for every property or attribute, you have to have a getter and setter method, right, in order to have accessibility to those attributes, right? Okay, so same deal in in Ruby, in order to have accessibility, meaning getter and setter method for an attribute called the destination, you are going to use attribute accessor and the name of the instance variable or attribute. Okay, and so now let's say we created an object instance of rocket ship here, right? And now if I want to use setter method, so this is the way you are going to in fact set the value of destination. So all that destination equals Saturn. Basically this destination equal, that is again a method, and basically because it's a method, you can in fact have a parenthesis around this Saturn. So you are actually calling this equal and destination equal method to set the value of destination attribute with the Saturn. Okay, so basically you're using setter method of it. Okay, let's see. Let me actually answer the question later on after this is done. Okay, so let's move on. Inheritance. So inheritance works just like in Java. A class can inherit functionality and variables from a superclass. Okay, the superclass sometimes is called a parent class or base class, just like in Java. Ruby does not support multiple inheritance, so class in Ruby can have only a single superclass, just like in Java. And all non-private variables and functions are inherited by child class from the parent class, like in Java. So pretty much the same concept. Okay, how you can override a method. So this works pretty much like in Java as well. So let's say we have a parent class. Okay, so in fact the name of the parent class is called the parent class. It has defined a method called a method. Okay, now we created a child class from parent class. Okay, which means this child class will inherit this a method. Okay, however, if the child class want to override the parent method, then it basically defines its own. Okay, so we define a method, and you can even call the parent version of a method, okay, which is actually displaying b, and it also prints a. Okay, so when you create an instance from a child class and then you call a method, the result is going to be b and a will be displayed. Okay, because this a method of child class will be invoked, and then it calls the super, which prints out b, then it prints out a. So b and a will be displayed. So overriding a method works exactly the same like in Java. Now let's see how you can create an object instance, meaning how you can instantiate Ruby object. Okay, so we have seen examples of using new method already. So here we can say user.new, and then you can pass the key value pairs. So the name property will be set with Shin, occupation property will be set with Daydreamer. Okay, now as we are going to learn later on, in Ruby you don't have to have a parenthesis. Okay, there are some conditions, but in general you can think of no need for parenthesis in Ruby language. So this parenthesis could be omitted. So this is the same thing as this. So I'm creating user object whose name property is set to Shin, whose occupation is set to Daydreamer. Okay, you can also create an empty object without passing anything. So in this case you can think of empty parenthesis here. So I have a user object, and then I can add name property and occupation property during runtime. Okay, so this is working exactly the same as like this. Or you can also pass a block. Again, we haven't learned the concept of a block yet. Okay, so you can actually call new method, and then you can pass a block. So for now you can think of a block is chunk of code, and it could be passed to a method as a special argument. Okay, so again, in the code block it will be creating a name property with Shin as a value and occupation property with the Daydreamer value. Okay, so this three different ways of creating or instantiating Ruby object is supported. In general, you're going to actually see this new keyword or new method is being used. Okay, so let's take a look at exercise 3. So exercise 3, we are going to create, so this is an exercise where we are going to define getter and setter methods. So let's take a look at this. So we have defined, so for example, so let's start from the beginning. We created hello class, and we have initialize method which receive greeting, and we are using that greeting to initialize instance variable called greeting. So you can think of this instance variable as a property or an attribute. Okay. Now we are going to initialize it. Now we are going to have getter method for name property. Okay, so here we have name. Okay, so by the way, in Ruby, the return value is basically result of evaluation of the last statement. So this last statement will be evaluated and will be returned. So this method, when this method, name method, is being invoked, it will return the value of name instance variable. Okay. This is the setter method. So as I mentioned, this name equal and this parenthesis basically is used as a setter method. So it receives the value, then it will use that value to set the value of name instance variable, meaning name attribute. So this is an example of getter and setter method. Okay. And then we are displaying greeting and name with a myGreet method, and we also have a myHello method, which we are using interpolation, okay, in which we are invoking the value of greeting and value of name. Okay, all right. So now let's take a look at the remainder of the code. So we created hello object instance, right, and hello is being passed as the greeting message. Okay, so the greeting attribute will be set with hello. Okay, in this case. Now this is the getter and setter method. So this is setter method. So I am setting attribute name with a value of Sang Shin. As I said before, this is a method. So this is in fact same thing as this. Okay, this is an example where we omitted parentheses. Okay, because in Ruby you don't have to have a parenthesis, but you can have a parenthesis for your arguments. We have a single argument called the Sang Shin, and we can actually enclose it with a parenthesis. So as you can see, this is considered as a name of the method, and this is considered as an argument within a parenthesis. So that is basically the setter method. Now when I get the value of name, this is in fact the getter method. Okay, so again, everything from an object is considered as a method. Okay, so this name is basically calling a name method. So you can in fact have a parenthesis at the end. Okay, so that is the way that we define getter and setter method. Now, attribute accessor. So basically by using attribute accessor with the name of an attribute, this is replacing these two. Okay, so instead of actually defining getter and setter method like this, you can use attribute accessor and the name of the attribute. Okay, and the result is going to be the same. All right. Okay, so let's talk about the so 3.3 is a class inheritance. So here we created a person class. Okay, so it does have a say hello and say goodbye method. And then we created a child class from parent class called person. Person is our parent class. Okay, and here it defines its own say hello method. So it's overriding say hello method of a parent. Okay, but it's accessing attribute name, which is defined in the parent class. Okay, but it also accesses school, the attribute defined in the child class. Okay, so when you run it, it works pretty much what we expected. Okay, adding a new method to a built-in class in string class. So one of the power of Ruby comes in is flexibility. You can actually add new method to built-in classes such as a string class. Okay, so I can actually add rotation of 13 is basically the self is referencing current object. So this is like a this in Java, and basically for any characters of this, I want to translate into this. So capital A will be translated into N. Okay, so I print hello world, and then if I call the rotation 13 method, that which we just defined right here, again you can have because it's a method, you can have a parenthesis if you want to at the end, and then it will result in some kind of the encryption in a sense using this mapping. Okay, so that is the end of the Ruby Basics 1, and I'm gonna give you guys about 10 minutes to do exercise 3, and if you have time, please do the homework as well. Okay, all right, so let me just